Have you ever found yourself at a loved one's home, driven by affection, but upon leaving, you felt a bit uncomfortable and unsure whether you might have overstepped in some way? Maybe you've even wondered if your visits, made with care, are doing more harm than good. If you've reached your 60s or beyond, it's especially important to be mindful of how, when, and why you visit others as we navigate the golden years of life. While a friendly visit may seem harmless at first, sometimes what we consider a simple act of goodwill can, unintentionally, create discomfort or strain interpersonal relationships. In this audiovisual material, we will discuss 4 categories of individuals that it may be wise to consider not visiting after turning 60, as what you perceive as an innocent visit could, without realizing it, cause tension, misunderstandings, or even resentment. By the end of this video, you will have tools to maintain healthier and more respectful relationships with your loved ones, ensuring that your connections remain strong and mutually satisfying. In this session, we'll focus on the importance of honoring individual space, how overvisiting can backfire, and ways to protect both your boundaries and those of the people you care about. Join me as we explore how to avoid common mistakes that can harm your friendships and family bonds while discovering the best strategies to express your affection without crossing any boundaries. If you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoy this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you could help me keep sharing these valuable lessons by liking it and spreading the word. If today's video topic has caught your interest, type 1 in the comments, otherwise, feel free to write 0 so I can learn what to improve and make these videos even more helpful for you. Now, let's dive into the main topic. It's not advisable to visit old acquaintances without announcing your arrival. As we go through different life stages and solidify the bonds that shape our relationships, one truth becomes increasingly clear: the importance of valuing individual space and others' time. Over the years, we come to understand that even the closest friendships require a subtle balance between closeness and boundaries. We may have shared years of laughter and experiences, or supported each other through difficult times, but that doesn't change the fact that everyone needs their own space. One of the simplest yet most meaningful ways to show consideration for a friend's space is to avoid showing up at their home without prior notice. It might seem harmless, even thoughtful, to visit their house unannounced. After all, you've shared so much over the years, and surely your friendship is strong enough to withstand an unexpected visit, right? However, the reality is that, no matter how long you've nurtured your friendship, we all have the right to privacy and personal time. While we may perceive an unplanned visit as a sign of closeness, it can actually be seen as an intrusion, an unexpected disruption to someone's routine. A simple message or call before visiting someone might seem like an insignificant detail, but it actually makes a big difference. It's a way of recognizing that their time and space are just as valuable as your desire to reconnect. Take a moment to reflect: how do you feel when someone shows up at your house unannounced? Even if you appreciate that person and have known them for many years, it can still feel overwhelming. It's not about the person or their intention, but about the interruption to your routine. Maybe you're caught up in something important, working on a project, dealing with personal matters, or simply enjoying a moment of peace. An unexpected visit can disturb your emotional state, making you feel obligated to entertain the visitor or guilty for not being in the mood to socialize. In delicate situations, where we don't want to hurt our friends but need to protect our mental and emotional peace, prior communication, whether through a call or a message, can be a simple yet meaningful solution. This action allows both parties to prepare for the interaction, ensuring that both are in the right emotional space. It also removes the feeling of disrupting the other person's routine. A call is an act of consideration, not imposition, and shows respect. Its implicit message is, I value your company, but I want to make sure this is a good time for you. In a world where everyone is constantly busy, this small gesture of consideration can be crucial for nurturing a harmonious and lasting relationship. I've come to the conclusion that respecting these boundaries isn't just a formality, but a display of empathy and maturity in our friendships. Indeed, life can be a whirlwind, and people grow, transform, and progress. As we age, we become more aware of our own needs, one of which is the need for peace, tranquility, and personal space. This doesn't mean distancing ourselves from friends, but rather creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable and appreciated. We live in an era where life can feel overwhelming, and we all have our own worries and responsibilities. Understanding that our friends may not always have the emotional energy to receive visitors is a sign of deep respect for their well-being. Before we move on, remember to like the video if you're enjoying it, and subscribe to the channel for the best tips on how to attract abundance and prosperity into your life. Let's move forward. Jennifer and Kate, two dear friends, have shared a strong and lasting friendship for over 3 decades. Together, they've gone through life's ups and downs, celebrating victories, offering comfort in times of sorrow, and supporting each other through life's complexities. However, over time, both found themselves with increasingly tight schedules. Jennifer, in particular, thought that showing up unannounced was a simple way to reconnect, not realizing that this practice was no longer the most appropriate way to nurture their friendship. One afternoon, Jennifer arrived at Kate's house without scheduling a visit in advance, thinking it would be a casual and spontaneous meeting. However, Kate was deep into an important project and wasn't mentally prepared for social interaction. Though Kate always treated Jennifer politely, she felt overwhelmed and rushed, unable to give her full attention. On the other hand, Jennifer felt like she had disrupted Kate's routine, which made the visit, despite its positive intent, create an uncomfortable atmosphere for both. After that situation, Jennifer reflected and realized it would have been more appropriate to notify Kate in advance. From that moment on, she decided to respect Kate's schedule, sending her a message or making a call before going to see her. It wasn't about creating distance, but about making sure that both were in the right mental and emotional state to enjoy a good time together. Now, they find themselves in their favorite cafe, a neutral place where neither feels the pressure of daily obligations. There, they can chat, relive stories, and enjoy each other's company without worrying about disrupting each other's routines. Each of their habits has changed, and their friendship has only grown stronger thanks to this simple but meaningful shift in how they share their time. If you're still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please write 1 in the comments to let me know you're still here with me. This way of acting, where personal boundaries are valued, doesn't mean the friendship is deteriorating. On the contrary, it reveals growth and maturity in the relationship. It means understanding that everyone has their own life and that's okay, it's natural. By allowing ourselves individual freedom, we encourage emotional bonds to strengthen. It's an exercise in kindness, empathy, and mutual security. You're showing your friend you appreciate them by respecting their time and individuality, just as you would want them to do the same for you. As the years go by, the need to protect ourselves and enjoy moments alone becomes more evident. This doesn't imply social isolation, but rather a wise management of our energy. The importance of stillness and introspection becomes clearer. Experience has taught us that peace is priceless. It's not about avoiding others or living in isolation, but about appreciating those moments of solitude to recharge and reflect. And when we choose to spend time with others, we want it to be a meaningful encounter with purpose. Take a moment to consider your friendships and how you relate to your friends. Showing respect for their boundaries is a gesture of affection, a way to show you value their peace, personal space, and emotional well-being. When thinking of visiting unannounced, keep in mind that a simple communication, whether a call or a message, can make a big difference. This helps both of you prepare for a meaningful meeting without the tension of interrupting daily activities. Ultimately, the most valuable moments we share with friends are those where both are truly ready, mentally and emotionally prepared to converse. It's about prioritizing quality over quantity, ensuring the shared time is genuine and enjoyable for both. Don't frequent your relatives' homes too much. When we think about visiting our loved ones, we often assume that spending time together will strengthen our bonds. Family generally occupies a central place in our minds when we reflect on those who should be an essential part of our lives, especially as we grow older. The idea that the more time we spend with family, the closer we will be, seems logical and appealing, right? The idea of seeing each other frequently evokes feelings of affection, closeness, and the well-being of being surrounded by people who know you deeply. After all, they are the ones who have shared with you both the good and bad times in life, so, in theory, more time together should result in a stronger bond, or should it? At first glance, this notion seems very logical. Who wouldn't want to spend more time with their loved ones, create memories, and strengthen existing bonds? However, over time, we realize that spending too much time with family can, at times, have the opposite effect. What once comforted us may start to feel like a heavy burden. As the years go by and we experience changes, the dynamics of our relationships also transform. And sometimes, too much of something positive can lead to emotional exhaustion and unwanted consequences. The more we insist on staying constantly close, the more we risk suffocating those we love without even noticing. I have come to understand that, while family is essential, there is something equally important: personal space. It's crucial to respect not only our own boundaries but also those of the people we care about. Space doesn't mean distancing ourselves from those we love, but giving them the opportunity to breathe, to live their lives independently, and to ensure that the time we spend together continues to be something special and not an obligation. The busy and hectic life he had led no longer existed. He had never really prepared for the stillness of retirement. For the first time, he felt adrift, unsure of how to occupy his days or what his purpose was now that there were no work demands to keep him busy. Paul had always prided himself on his family ties. He believed retirement would be the perfect time to reconnect with old friends and relatives. He longed to once again feel the warmth of companionship, to revive those bonds that had been paused during his working years. So, one afternoon, with a tin of homemade cookies in hand, he decided to visit an old friend, Richard. Richard, who had retired a few years before Paul, was someone he had known for a long time. They shared countless memories and were very close while working together in the same field. Paul thought the visit would not only cheer Richard up a bit but also give him the opportunity to rekindle an old friendship. It seemed the most appropriate thing to do, with no hidden motives or expectations, just two old friends catching up after years of silence. When Pablo arrived at Ricardo's residence, he was puzzled by what he noticed. Ricardo and his wife, Maria, welcomed him warmly, but there was something in their faces that made him feel uncomfortable. Instead of the affectionate greeting he had anticipated, there was a certain tension in the air. Pablo tried to ease the discomfort by offering them cookies, but Ricardo, with a smile that didn't reflect joy in his eyes, mentioned that their lives had become calmer since his retirement, almost as if he felt the need to justify their new, slower pace of life. Ricardo jokingly commented that they no longer had power or influence to offer, a remark Pablo tried to take humorously. However, despite his efforts to reassure them that he wasn't there to ask for anything, but simply to visit, there was something in the air that felt odd. The discomfort didn't decrease, it seemed to intensify. The conversation that followed was a strange mix of awkwardness and forced cheerfulness. Pablo, sensing the uncomfortable shift in the atmosphere, tried to keep the conversation light, but it felt empty. There was no spark of connection, no warmth in the familial bond they had once shared. The tea they drank together seemed lukewarm, and the silences between words grew heavier with each passing minute. Pablo began to realize that his visit, which he had envisioned as a simple gesture of affection, was causing more harm than good. He could see it in Ricardo's gaze and hear it in Maria's polite but distant responses. What was meant to be a moment of reconnection had turned into an obligation, a burden for everyone present. Finally, Maria said goodbye to Pablo at the door, with a tense smile and a polite but hurried farewell. As Pablo walked away from their house, he couldn't shake the feeling that his visit had been untimely. The encounter, which had promised warmth, left him feeling exhausted and embarrassed. After reflecting on what had happened, Pablo concluded that his desire to reconnect had, unintentionally, crossed the boundaries of their friendship. In his eagerness to get closer, he hadn't considered how important it was to respect Ricardo and Maria's personal space. They were in a different stage of their lives, one where they had established a calm, peaceful routine, and his sudden intrusion had disrupted that harmony. This experience taught Pablo a valuable lesson: it's not about the frequency with which you visit someone or how hard you try to please, but about respecting the needs of others. Family is not defined solely by physical proximity but also by the ability to know when to give space and allow others to live their lives without the pressure of constant communication. Sometimes, showing affection means stepping back, accepting silence, and trusting that the bond will remain strong, even without constant stimulation. Genuine affection does not demand incessant visits, it is about discerning when to stay and when to leave, allowing relationships to develop naturally, not by force, but because they are grounded in mutual respect and understanding. Ultimately, Pablo's visit was not in vain, but rather marked a milestone in his understanding of the transformation of emotional bonds. Affection doesn't always manifest in the same way as in youth, and sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to let go. As we grow older, it becomes more essential to cultivate our own personal space and grant loved ones the freedom to live their lives without feeling that they must constantly receive or please us. It is a lesson about the discreet power of respect, the understanding of the natural rhythm of relationships, and the trust that love will endure, even in the spaces between visits. Shared experiences, confidences, and the empathy that comes from having grown up in the same home seem like enough reasons to remain united forever. It is the kind of relationship that is supposed to endure in both good and bad times, being a constant source of support and affection. However, as time passes, the inevitable changes of life emerge, and those bonds that once seemed unbreakable may begin to feel vulnerable, even in the closest families. It is a reality that we often struggle to accept: the way things used to be, those family gatherings, those moments of togetherness, may not last forever. And, in the end, sometimes the wisest thing is to step back a bit and understand when it's time to respect individual space. Let's think of the case of the Martin family, a group of 5 siblings, all now over 50, each carrying with them decades of shared experiences. During their childhood, they were the perfect example of family harmony. Their parents' house was the epicenter of everything, the place where celebrations took place with affection, where the table was always full of laughter and delicious food, and where every Sunday seemed to bring them all together. The Martins enjoyed a life that many might envy, united, supportive, and full of joy. They knew each other's hearts, their desires, and their fears. There was something beautiful in the simplicity of it all, in the certainty that, no matter what happened in the outside world, they would always have a family to return to. In that home, they created memories that seemed destined to never fade. However, as we all know, life transforms. It's inevitable. As the years passed, her parents began to age, and something started to shift in the family dynamic. Then, after the inevitable loss of her parents, the center that had kept them united faded away. The house, once a gathering place for the family, the refuge where everyone found comfort, ceased to be a sanctuary for their meetings. The Martin family members, each focused on their own affairs, began to experience the quiet but powerful influence of distance. Each had their own family to attend to, their own obligations, their own lives to manage. It was no longer so simple to get together. The frequency of their family gatherings began to decrease, and what once was a constant presence in their lives transformed into a sporadic occurrence. The lively, crowded family meals became increasingly rare. The transformation was so gradual that it was hard to pinpoint when it began. At first, the absences were sporadic, justified by various circumstances such as work, health, or family matters. However, over time, the visits and phone calls, once frequent, became exceptional. The closeness that once felt natural turned into a sense of distance, like an echo of a fading reality. One day, a family friend, someone who had shared the Martin family's life for many years, asked Greg, the eldest brother, why they no longer gathered as often. Greg, who had always led the family meetings, who had been the unifying force, responded in a cold, almost apathetic tone. "We only used to get together because our parents were present. Now it doesn't make sense. If I have time, I'd rather spend it with my own family." At first, this response may feel harsh, even shocking. It can be painful and make you question your ideas about family relationships. But, though it's hard to admit, Greg's words contain an undeniable truth. It's a reality many families face as their members grow older. The bond that once held them together, usually the parents, is no longer there. The customs that made the family feel like an indestructible whole, those family traditions, the unexpected gatherings, the moments of shared joy, begin to fade away. And that connection is gradually replaced by the complications of adult life. As we move through life, obligations and commitments accumulate, reducing the time available for the connection we once had. No matter how hard it is to admit, priorities change, children grow up, families take different paths, and people evolve. What once seemed so natural, sharing a meal, enjoying moments with siblings, staying in frequent contact, becomes an increasingly difficult challenge. The truth is that we all experience changes, our lives, interests, goals, and even the way we connect with others. It's easy to think that because you've always had a close relationship with your siblings, that closeness will remain the same over time. However, the reality is that nothing in life stays the same. People drift apart, and relationships transform. And this is not necessarily negative, it's simply part of the natural course of life. As we grow, each of us follows our own path, and sometimes those paths no longer intersect as often as before. The family dynamic, which once seemed so fluid, now requires more effort, greater understanding, and a deeper respect for each person's space. This is the point where the idea of visiting your siblings without a specific reason or invitation can sometimes feel uncomfortable. It's not that there's a lack of love or respect between them, but life, with its continuous changes, has made it harder to keep pace with one another, and that's okay. In reality, not all of us are at the same point, and sometimes showing up unannounced or without a clear reason can create tension in an already delicate situation. There may be unspoken emotions of resentment or weight, particularly when one sibling feels they are always the one expected to play host or keep the fun going. These feelings, though often unvoiced, can gradually erode the relationship. At this point, it's essential to learn to let go, not as an abandonment of the bond, but as a recognition of the space needed for each person's growth. Knowing when to take a pause and allow ourselves to evolve in our own lives is key. The affection between siblings doesn't weaken when visits become less frequent, instead, it takes on a new form. The bond that was once strengthened through shared moments evolves into something deeper and more filled with understanding. It's a love that has matured, one that values each person's independence and space, but still preserves the respect for the connection that has been nurtured over a lifetime. It's crucial to understand that what truly matters in any relationship, especially in family, is not how often we see each other, but the quality of the relationship we maintain. Sometimes, this involves giving ourselves the time and space to breathe, develop, and thrive individually. It is important to let go of the belief that love is only shown through constant presence and accept that, at certain moments, the best way to show affection is through respect and understanding of the other's journey. So, while visits may become more infrequent, love doesn't have to disappear, it just takes a new form, and that form, though different, can be equally intense and valuable. Avoid going to the homes of extremely organized people. Going to someone's house is not just a social visit, it's a way of understanding that person, a silent sign of appreciation for their private space. When you enter someone's home, you're not just accessing a physical place, but also diving into the center of their life, their personal story, and their character. As we age, we become more receptive to what surrounds us and more aware of the calm and energy we receive from inhabiting a place we've personalized to fit our needs. Over time, our homes begin to be seen as sacred spaces, extensions of who we are. The serenity, order, and cleanliness in these spaces are not just preferences, but fundamental aspects of our well-being. It's not surprising, then, that as we grow older, we become more protective of our homes, those sanctuaries where we find comfort in the face of the outside world's bustle. Ryan is someone very attached to his home, feeling great affection for it. He is extremely meticulous, perhaps even excessively so, in how he organizes and cares for his space. For him, a clean and orderly environment is not just a matter of appearance but a way of creating a calm and serene atmosphere. Everything has its place, and every corner is spotless. Walking into his home gives the impression of being in a meticulously maintained museum, though not in a cold or distant way, but rather because everything in his home makes sense, everything is part of a whole. His house reflects his personality, his need for control, and his way of ensuring that his surroundings are organized, predictable, and peaceful. This is how he builds his own refuge. This dedication to order and cleanliness might be seen as a mania by some, but for Ryan, it's something much deeper. It's not just about having an organized space, it's about experiencing control over his environment, something that is deeply significant to him, especially as he grows older. Ryan has faced many challenges in his life, and his home has always been his sanctuary. It has been the place where he can recharge, where he feels that he has control over his world, even if only for a moment. When his environment is disturbed, it's not just the material chaos that bothers him, but the emotional upheaval that comes with it. The peace he has worked so hard to build feels undone, and that emotional disruption is what truly causes him distress. One day, Ryan's cousin Amanda visited him unexpectedly. Amanda had always been more impulsive and less attached to the idea of order. Her visit, although well-intentioned, had not been planned. She needed to borrow some money and thought she might find Ryan at home to quickly ask him for a favor. Although Ryan had always been generous and willing to help his family, this time, things would be different. When Amanda arrived, she was in a hurry and didn't pay much attention to her surroundings. She was somewhat agitated, perhaps feeling too comfortable in Ryan's house. She went straight to the bathroom and, in her rush, accidentally spilled a bottle of lotion. It was a small spill, almost imperceptible to anyone, but to Ryan, it felt like a crack in the very foundation of his sanctuary. At first, Ryan didn't pay much attention to the incident, but as the scene kept replaying in his mind, he began to feel that familiar sense of annoyance. It wasn't just about the spill, it was what it represented, a lack of understanding or respect for the care and attention he had given to his home. At that moment, he felt that Amanda had disregarded the boundaries of his personal space. For Ryan, his home wasn't merely a place to live, but a manifestation of his inner peace, an expression of the effort he put into ensuring his environment was filled with protection and harmony. Disorder didn't only disturb him physically, it was a disruption of the peace he had so diligently worked to establish. Ultimately, Ryan made the difficult decision not to give Amanda the money she needed. For those who didn't understand the emotional weight behind his decision, it might have seemed like an insensitive or ruthless attitude, but for Ryan, it made perfect sense. It wasn't about the money itself, it was something much deeper, respect for his own boundaries and the need to maintain order in his environment. Later, Ryan explained that, although he would never refuse to help a family member, he could not overlook the disrespect toward his home. To him, a simple act of kindness, like lending money, wasn't enough to compensate for the emotional significance his space held. His house was his refuge, a place that had to be treated with care and consideration, not disturbed by careless actions. Ryan's reaction might seem exaggerated to some, even trivial. After all, the mess was minimal, just a spill in the bathroom. But that's exactly the point, sometimes it's not about the incident itself, but the emotional meaning behind it. Ryan's experience highlights a truth that many people, even if they don't recognize it, consider essential: our homes are not just places where we live, but extensions of who we are. They represent our boundaries and our efforts to find balance and peace in the world. When someone enters our home without acknowledging those efforts, it feels like an invasion, not only of our space but of our identity. Ryan's story imparts an important lesson about respecting other people's homes. It reminds us that a visit, no matter how well-intentioned, can become an intrusion if we don't consider the emotional impact we might have on someone else's well-being. For those of us who appreciate order and cleanliness, it's not just about having a spotless house, but about preserving a sense of peace, a personal space that feels like our own, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. And as we age, that peace becomes even more valuable. It's not just a preference, but a necessity. When visiting someone else's home, it's important to remember that we are entering their personal space, their sanctuary, and therefore, we should approach it with humility, respecting their boundaries. Even a small change can have a deeper impact than we might think. It's easy to consider Ryan's reactions as disproportionate, but it's an emotional experience that many people, especially those who value order and cleanliness, face daily. The next time you go to someone's house, especially if that person values their home, keep the following in mind. It's not just about taking care of their belongings but honoring the essence of who they are and the emotional universe they have created around them. A small gesture of consideration can make a big impact, and as a result, you might realize that your respect strengthens the relationship between you both. This goes far beyond any material benefit. As we conclude our conversation today, I trust that this story has inspired you to reflect on the importance of respecting other spaces and the deep value of maintaining order in our homes. Although each of us leads our lives uniquely, there's one thing we all share: the need to find peace and comfort in the places we call home. Whether you prioritize cleanliness or simply seek a serene refuge, understanding the emotional meaning of someone else's home is essential for strengthening relationships based on respect and consideration. Now we'd love to hear your opinion. What lessons have you learned from today's video? Is there anything you'll change when visiting someone's house or even how you manage your own home? I'd love to hear your perspective. Leave a comment about something you've learned and plan to implement in your daily life. If you enjoyed this audiovisual material, share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to show your support by hitting the like button, sharing it, and joining our YouTube community. Your support is incredibly valuable, and we're excited about the idea of continuing to share more content with you. We appreciate your attention, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.